The views expressed on this program are those of the producers
Okay.
and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Welcome to Moments of Strength. I'm your host, Mary Kaufman. In this show, we dive deep into the lives of mothers' unique journeys of parenting and personal growth. From juggling family dynamics to personal passions and career ambitions, we'll talk about challenges, triumphs, and pivotal moments that shape their lives, emphasizing the resilience and strength that comes with motherhood. Thank you for joining us. Today's guest is Leah. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you.
So Leah and I have known each other over the years, probably maybe like the last 5 years-ish. Yeah. Kind of peripherally at first through baseball.
Yep.
Our boys played together.
Yep.
And then your husband also was a coach
Yes.
for the team. So,
Yep.
So what we'll do today is we'll talk about obviously parenting, but we want to get to know you a little bit. And since the aim of the show is to provide support and resources through stories and experiences, we'll have you tell some of your life experiences in an effort to help other mothers who feel like alone or are just going through a struggle, or sometimes they're just thriving and want to be part of a community. So the first part of this, let's get to know you a little bit. So tell us about yourself, and you can start from wherever you want. I always say, I would start at birth if somebody let me talk that long, but everybody doesn't want to do that. So start where you want and let us know who you are.
I was born actually in Prairie du Chien.
Okay.
And I grew up there and then went to college at UW Eau Claire.
Okay.
And then moved to Madison shortly after that. Right around the time of 9/11. So that was kind of weird, I guess, for me. It was like this, I wanted to leave home, but it was a weird time to leave home.
Sure.
So it was, I don't know, I always think about that because it was like I wanted to be gone, but I also was like, I don't want to leave home because it was a weird time to leave home.
That was life-changing in so many ways.
It
not
was.
just personally, but
Yes.
globally.
Yes, it was like I want to be on my own, and I want to do things to be on my own. But it was also like I want to be by my parents, and I want to be safe and all of that stuff. So it was it was like you said, it was very life-changing, and I still very much remember that. Wanting to strike out on my own, but also not wanting to leave my parents' house at the time, because I had graduated and I went back home for the summer and just kind of did some work while trying to find a job. And then I got a call for a job here in Madison, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to go. I want to stay in my safe cocoon and be at my parents' house. And so that transition was very kind of hard for me at first.
That's interesting. We talk about resilience and mental toughness and things on the show too, just in motherhood. And that's an example, a huge example, sort of a global thing that was going on. Also, what was going on with you internally. And so what do you think, you came to Madison despite feeling that way?
Yeah, I did. And I'm glad that I did, but I think I had a little bit of an easier transition. My aunt lived here. I had other family that was here at the time. My grandpa was here. My mom is from Madison area, so I had some family, and I stayed with my aunt and my cousin. But I also went back. I almost lived like a college life of like going back home whenever I could, and that that transition.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very different. It wasn't what I thought it would be. But yeah, it was, I don't know, it was, that still sticks out in my head that, you know, what would have been like had that not happened.
Right.
And I just struck out on my own and got an apartment and, you know, kind of stayed away. But I do think, I studied abroad when I was in college, and I think that was, I told your daughter, actually, when I saw her, because we were talking about her college experience,
right.
and I was like, study abroad. I tell everyone that, because it was very life-changing for me, too.
Where did you go?
I went to, it was a special kind of college through the University of Indiana. So it was like we partnered with them, and they send American kids to a castle almost in in Lincolnshire, which is about an hour away by train from London.
Okay.
And you're taught basically by a few American professors and then British professors, and there's like 100 to 200 kids. And it's really geared towards like learning about the culture. You know, you take credits for, it translates for credits, but then it's also about travel. You know, so like our classes were mostly 4 days a week, and then on the weekends you traveled.
Yes.
And then a couple of times, you know, you had 3 days a week, and then they had school-sponsored trips a lot.
Sure.
So, yeah, it was great.
You lived in the castle?
Yes.
Okay, this is so fun.
Yeah, and actually, the funny thing too was it was in a movie. They filmed a movie there before I was there.
Sure.
I can't think of the movie right now. It totally escapes me because it was sadly like it was in 2000. I went there in like the year 2000, so it was a long time ago.
It's a minute ago.
Just a minute. I don't like to think about how long ago that was. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a castle. It looks like a castle.
Yeah.
And then there was a carriage house, but my room was in the castle. So yeah, and then you lived there, you went to school in there, like our classes were in the Great Hall and in the, you know, the kind of all of those big kind of rooms.
Yeah, this is so unique and great.
It was amazing. It was an amazing experience and a very unique experience for me growing up in a small town to leave, go outside of the country, and then just experience a culture that was not my own, and then see my culture from an outside perspective, you know, and then travel around. You know, I got to go to Paris and Scotland and Ireland, and then Spain, you know, afterwards too. Like my semester ended in, I think, April, and then I spent 3 weeks traveling on the Eurail system.
Did you have a group of people that
I did
went with you? Or?
Kind of. So I had a group of friends that we kind of traveled here and there throughout the semester, and then at the end, I went with a friend for 2-ish weeks, maybe, around, and then my mom came for a week. And we went to Germany and Austria, you know, saw the concentration camp, went to Berlin, you know, just saw a bunch of things. So it was life-changing. I feel like that was probably one of the best things that I did in my life for myself at that time.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
To really learn about the world, learn that you're not the center of the world. That we are not the center of, you know, the world.
Right.
So that was.
And yet the world is big enough for all of us, and there's a place for you where you go. So
yes,
you know, as long as you have sort of an open mind about that. And I just want to point something out. So we've had a lot of conversations sitting in the bleachers at the ball games or at the chess tournament, or sometimes for hours.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this about you.
No, I feel like I like to tell everybody that, because I like to, I don't know, I like to pass, I can't wait. Like I've already told my husband, I've already told my kids, you're going to study abroad.
Yes.
My husband is kind of like, ooh, that sounds expensive. And I'm like, I don't care. And in fact, I'm kind of like, when I got back, I was like poor. You know, I had no money. I was like, I need to graduate college. I need to get out of here so that I don't have debt. But in hindsight, I'm like, I should have stayed another year. I should have gone again. Yeah. And because when can you be
it's
poor?
It's an opportune time.
It's an opportune time. You know, like you're always going to be poor in college. Be more poor, go again. That's what I should have done. And so I feel like I tell everybody that because it's something that I learned that I'm like, I wish I'd done it again. just do it as much as you can, go, because you will never get a chance to do that kind of stuff when you're older.
Even if you do, it will look and feel different. It'll
Yes.
impact you differently.
Yes.
And if you can do that when you're older, you should as well. But if you have that opportunity. So what's strange about not knowing that about you is, so I lived in Germany. I mentioned this on another show, but I grew up in the Air Force. So I lived in Germany. And when we were there, I lived there 3 years and on a military base. And so the Air Force would organize trips to different countries. And so we would go with my parents, or one of my parents would take us, the older kids. So we went to many of those same places. And I just find this strange because I feel like I know you to a certain extent, and yet we have still all these things in common that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to point that out because I think so many times, you know, we're walking through life and we think we know something about someone we don't know. We see them in a room, we make an assumption about them, we know nothing about them.
Yes.
Here I've spent all of this time with you, and even spending time with somebody, you still don't know them to the point where like you really could make an assumption or a judgment or something like that. And I just wanted to point that out because, well, I'm a little bit shocked, and I think it's a good example of
It is.
You know, just before you take that step to make an assumption or judgment about something, it's like try to get to know them. There's probably something similar, something in common there, just the human experience. You know?
Yes, and I think, you know, I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect, but I think as you get older, you try to do that a little bit more. And I think I learned a lot through traveling, and I think you I'm sure you did too, seeing seeing other cultures. You know, some of the people that I traveled with, I remember specifically a story. We were in Germany. We got on the wrong train, this person and I. Well, it should have been scary. I was like, whatever. We got on the wrong train. We were trying to go to Freiburg. We went to Triberg instead. I'm not really sure how it happened, but
Feels
we
like
ended
you
up.
Could mix that up.
We got on the wrong train. We ended up in this tiny little town that we weren't intending to go to. No one spoke English. I took German in high school. I mean, I barely spoke any type of German. I mean, I knew a few words here and there. They were so nice. I mean, these people were so nice, trying to help us, you know, and we're like, but I very much remember the person I was traveling with just kept talking louder and slower. And I'm like,
I know.
No, please stop.
This is like a default.
Yes, this is a default that we do, but I'm like, please stop doing that because they don't know. They're not, you know. And I was so embarrassed, but you know, they would, I remember going out to eat, trying to like find some food, and I'm like I'm trying to translate as much as I could, you know, just trying to find the few words I knew, you know. I'm like, oh, and I'm trying to help us. Oh my gosh, they were so nice and sweet to us when, you know, I would have been so mad at us because, you know, like us, you know, only speaking English in this tiny little town of just speaking German, but you know, I was trying to put myself in their shoes, you know, and that's what I'm trying to do, I guess, you know, like not making assumptions, trying to bring it back to what you were saying, trying not to make too many assumptions, and you know, you don't really know what someone is going through until you lived their life and put yourself in their shoes and stuff like that. So I guess I learned a lot with that, but I think I learned even more going through some of the jobs that I've held too. So,
yeah. I mean, you have to an extent, put yourself in the person's shoes at work, or it doesn't. You can't figure it out. You know?
When I first started, I worked at so I worked for the Madison School District, and I first started at West High School, and that was very eye-opening to me because I came from a small town, not a lot of diversity, but you know, that I didn't think about that too much, but I remember starting at West, very diverse, you know, and that was different for me, but in a different way of like I remember the first snow day that I worked through, and I went to work, it was still a snow day, but there were kids coming to school, and I was like, why are they coming to school? Like, this is a snow day. They should be so excited. And the person I worked with explained to me, like, they don't eat if they don't come to school, you know, and they don't, they might not be in a safe place if they're not at school. And that was so revolutionary to me.
For sure.
It was just like, I did not think about that.
Right.
And that was, you know, working there, really bringing in like some of the travels that I did, and then working there, it was like, wow, you know, my life is very different. And I grew up very differently than a lot of those kids did.
Right.
And there was one kid in particular that I feel like really kind of changed and opened my eyes to that. Like, he would always, I had a lot of pictures from my travels there, and he would come in a lot and ask me about those pictures. And I would just tell him so many stories. You know, I was like 22 at the time.
Yeah. Well, and just out of it, so you're like excited.
Yeah, back from there. And he would come in and ask me about those, and I would give him bus tickets. Mainly, he was kind of getting in some trouble, and so I was assigned to get him bus tickets. And for some reason, we had a rapport. Like, he liked me. I really liked him. He was just, but he'd get into a lot of trouble somewhere from other people. And but he would always ask me about these pictures, and he'd want to tell stories, and I was like, oh, I'll tell you stories, absolutely. And he was like, oh, I wish I could go somewhere. Like, I wish I could do that. I was like, you just have to study abroad. Like, just study abroad when you go to college. Like, me, dumb me. I'm just like, just
we
do
can
that.
just do it.
Yeah, and he goes, I'm not going to college. And, you know, that was very eye-opening for me. And, like, I probably had this, like,
hard to understand.
It was like, I didn't even think about that. It never even occurred to me that he would not go to college. Right. And for him, looking at me, like, why would you even think I'm going to college? So that was very, very eye-opening for me, you know. And so then we had a lot of conversations about that, and kind of, you know, he taught me a lot. Hopefully I taught him a little bit, but I mean, I think that he taught me more about what it meant to be in this world than I think, and I needed to learn that, I think. From, you know, even, I thought I knew things, but like, I didn't know hardly anything, I think, until talking to him and really learning about what it meant to be, you know, not just from this small town and having that privilege to go to college and go to be able to study abroad and that kind of thing. So,
well, and I think we're all up against that in some manner. I mean, we operate from our lived experience. So if you haven't interacted with something, or you haven't had an experience with that, it doesn't make you a bad person or somebody that doesn't know. But I think how you handle realizing that is what can make you a more dynamic person. You know, are you open to learning that not everybody's having the same experience that you? What are you willing to do, or what can you give, or who can you be with somebody who is, you know, maybe struggling, and you didn't have that struggle. And sometimes it's the smallest thing too. You don't have to go solving everybody else's problems, but, you know, can you be a resource? You clearly were a safe place for this kid to come and talk to you, and, you know, you told him stories of things maybe no one ever would have told him those stories. So you really opened up what's possible in the world to him, and we don't know, you know, how that might have affected him, but he clearly affected you. I mean, it's one of the first things you've talked about, and I think being open to that and being humble enough to realize, you know, you don't know everything.
Yeah, it was, I feel like those couple of things were kind of pivotal for me in my younger, before motherhood kind of opened my eyes again. But those, you know, that study abroad, and those, you know, really understanding what how my life was different from other people's lives. So you've worked for the school district since then, but in different roles? I started with the school district right after, like, in 2001, and I've been with them ever since, just in different roles.
And how has that been? Do you enjoy moving around and doing different things, or?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It wasn't always necessarily by choice. But I feel like it kind of moved me in the direction of where I was probably meant to go. Initially, I wanted to be a writer or an editor. It just didn't turn out that way. Life happens, you know. I think, and I probably didn't realize I might have needed to go to, like, New York City to do that, but I don't know that I'm meant to be in New York City. You know, and when I was younger, I was like, yeah, I want to live in New York City. But now I'm like, I don't know that I want to live in New York City, you know. I have, you know, written, my major was creative writing. So I have written and I have edited books because my aunt was actually a book editor in Montreal.
Okay.
So I worked with her sometimes. So I've done all of that kind of work, and I would have loved to actually do it, but it just kind of didn't work out that way.
Sure.
But I actually do really like the work that I do. I really enjoy education. I'm very passionate about public education. It's kind of my soapbox, and I could talk about it for hours if somebody would let me, though they might not like some of my views on it. But yeah, I'm very passionate about it. I mean, I even was like a teacher's assistant in high school, and then I worked in the offices during college to help pay for some college and stuff too. So I've worked in education probably most of my life. So it kind of was a natural fit there too when I got the job, and it just kind of stayed there. So,
have you identified, or do you think you could pinpoint what it is about education itself, or maybe that environment, or what draws you to that? Do you think?
I feel like education is the key to everything. It's the key. It can open doors. It's knowledge, or education and knowledge is the key to everything. Like I feel like it can fix, I don't want to get political, I'm not trying to be political, but like it can really fix or help society's problems. If you're educated, education and mental health, like it can fix like prison, like if people are educated, they can get their jobs. It can help them not crime rates. It can help, like abortion rates. It can help all this stuff because education, you can make better choices for your life. You can get a better job for yourself. You can do all of these kinds of things. So without delving, into my hour or two long rant about paying for public education and having sufficient funds for public education, I just feel like it's really the key to a better society. That's what I think.
That's a good way to sum it up. It's a component of what would help things level up.
Yes. Yeah. You bring everybody up and your society is better. And to bring everybody up, I feel like they just need to be educated in the right way. But to do that, I think you need to have good teachers who are paid well, and teachers who are engaged, because I mean, I have seen it, when you have a student who is engaged and wants to be there, they want to be there and they will work harder for it. Like I've seen it in my kids and just other kids in general in schools, when they find a teacher who actually like they get and they're like, I love my teacher, they want to be there.
Yes. I mean, as a human person, I feel that as well, whether it's work or social.
Even, your boss or, you're just, if you find that person that you're engaged with, you're like, I want to be there and I want to go and I want to work hard. And that translates into education too. So,
well, I'm a huge supporter of that because I'm still in school.
Right.
I feel like that's never going to end.
Right.
So your kids.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you got the job in Madison and you came here, and then what happened next? Married?
Yes. Eventually I met my husband, which weirdly we had all these crazy connections that we didn't know about. Like my mom and his dad graduated high school together, which is crazy to think about. They didn't know each other, but, but they graduated high school together. And we just had all these friends in common, so which we didn't know about at the time. We might have even met in Hawaii, but didn't see each other there. That's weird, right?
That is weird, like crossing paths.
Crossing paths, because his roommate. I went on this trip to Hawaii with a group of people. Like I went with my family, and we went on this group trip to Hawaii to see like the Badger game, among other things. And we went with some friends that we knew from my hometown.
Okay.
And we went to the Badger game together, and Tanner, my husband, was roommates with the guy who was on the trip too, and we sat next to them at the Badger game.
Weird.
I know, and Tanner was at the Badger game too and saw his friend there at the Badger game. I mean, he was like, well, I went to see Jeremy, his name is Jeremy, at the Badger game, and I was like, well, that's weird, because I was sitting near like a couple people away from Jeremy.
There aren't pictures or something where you could go back and check?
I mean, I never would have, noticed him necessarily. It's just kind of weird. We have these like weird connections, and when I had an apartment in Madison, I lived literally like 3 blocks from his house or his parents' house. So it's just weird. Just these weird little connections. But yes, so we met and got married, and we have 3 boys. 3
How's
active.
that?
A little too much testosterone in my house sometimes. But, you know, I love them, and sometimes I want to kill them, but mostly I love them.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, kids get under your skin. And,
Yes.
and I think you just want what's best for them. And when it's not going that way, that can be frustrating.
You know, I thought I had it all. Where I was like, when I first had my first son, I was like, I remember going to the birthing class. You know, I was like, yeah, the birthing class, great. And the birthing instructor, I still kind of laugh about her. There's someone that was in that class. Actually, Cam's kindergarten class had 2 kids in his kindergarten class that were also in the same birthing class.
My gosh.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. And one of them lived near us, and I actually saw her out walking, and we were laughing about the birthing class because she was like, she was kind of a little crazy, a little out there, but she was great. But anyway, I remember during the birthing class, I was like, this is just kind of crazy stuff, like common sense, you know, like I had a niece and a nephew at the time. I did a lot of babysitting. I'll be fine.
You knew it all already.
Yes, I'll be fine. You know, like this is just kind of, and then Cam was born.
Right.
And then I brought him home, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should have taken notes. You know, like,
for sure.
What am I doing? Now I'm responsible for this human being, and kind of almost having a panic attack, like he's not going anywhere, like we have to keep him now, what am I going to do with him, like,
the nurse
oh my
didn't come
gosh,
home with you.
No, there's no like manual, they didn't give me a book on him. Now what am I going to do, you know? And I remember laughing in hindsight about that, but like that whole birthing class, I was like, God, this is boring. Oh my gosh, like
I already know it.
Yeah, like this is just common sense stuff. And then bringing them home, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do?
That's why they have those.
Yes, and I should have paid more attention.
Yeah. But Cam's okay.
He's okay now.
He's okay.
Yes, he turned out
He
okay.
made it through.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it was a couple years later, right?
Yeah, Beckett is about he's like 20 months younger than Cam, just under 2 years, yep. And then I was like, do we want another? I mean, I was pretty sure we wanted another one, but and then Grayson is 3 years younger than Beckett.
Okay.
So we waited a little bit longer.
He's so sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I've been around your family and the boys, and you know, they get along really well. They play really well together, but they're all very different, I think.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that? I think that's one of the joys of being a parent a lot of times, is this variety you get in your children. Yeah.
You know, they do. They get along great until they don't. Even this morning, like Grayson was badgering Beckett, and Beckett was badgering Grayson, and Tanner was like, "You only have 2 brothers," like to Grayson. You should get along better. And they're just like, "But he's saying this and he's saying that." But you know, like 5 minutes later, which I don't know, like I feel like as a girl, growing up as a girl, I held grudges, you know, like, and I couldn't get over that. But boys, I don't know. So far, my experience with boys is they fight for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then they're totally over it. And all they want to do, like, at the end of the day is, like, play with each other and have sleepovers. Like, my kids have sleepovers, like, every weekend. So I am enjoying that so far. They do not hold grudges, and they are over their fights very quickly. I'm really liking that. But
that's nice that they can do that.
We'll see how they are as adults. I mean, you never know. But so far, they don't seem to hold grudges. But yeah, Cam was always our nervous child. And you could tell that from the very beginning when he was born. Like, he was very clingy, very much did not want to be held by other people. He had to be held by me. And cried if, you know, like other people were holding him. He was very clingy, very sweet, but just, you know, very nervous about a lot of things. In kindergarten, it took like a year for, like, Tanner would drop him off. If Tanner was dropping him off, he'd always have to, like, stay on the playground. And could not leave the playground until Cam was inside. And then it took, and it took a good months until he wouldn't cry to like go into kindergarten. And Beckett is like, I don't really care. He's like, whatever. He's got this huge imagination.
Yeah, he's
like,
just so self-entertained always.
Yes, he's very self-entertained. He's got the biggest imagination. Very lazy. And like if he can figure out a way for someone else to do it for him, he will. Tanner always jokes that he's going to be a middle manager.
Like, is that resourceful?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And he's easily distracted. But he has like the best laugh ever. Like he has this belly laugh that like if he starts laughing, you will laugh because. And
you made it. If you can make Beckett laugh, like you were genuinely funny.
Yes. And like, but he also like, he has a radar for like crap. Like, he will not talk to you unless like you have like, unless he wants to.
Right. I've experienced this.
Yeah. He's like, he will not, he's just like, he's not interested in you unless he's, you have interested him. Like there's still people like he will not say a word to. But if once he gets you, he's like, he will not stop talking to you. And I know you are one of those people.
Like, it's very fun because I participate in his imagination.
Yes.
I mean, I'm very curious about the things he comes up with, and it's fun for me because I can sort of see what he's describing, and I like to throw some stuff in there. And sometimes he'll like let me, and sometimes he's like, no, that's not how it is.
Yeah, he's just like, no. And he tries to convince Grayson of things, and then Grayson will be like, is that real? It's like, no, it's not. And Becca goes, it is. And I'm like, but it's not. And he goes, well, it is in my world.
Yeah. He's got a disclaimer. It is in my world.
Yeah. So he is very, I don't know. Beckett is Beckett. He's so funny. And then Grayson is our wild child, kind of, like I feel like because he's the youngest, he's just always trying to keep up with things. He's super sweet, loves to cuddle, very much like mommy and like this, but he's also like, are you going to make that peanut butter sandwich? Because if you're not, I'm going to, because you're taking too long. And so he has done things like super fast compared to like Cam, like I'm still like, Cam, you're 11. Can you please make that peanut butter sandwich for yourself? And Grayson was making his own peanut butter sandwich at like 3.
Some of that is survival too, because you're the youngest. And then also as parents, I think with your first, you don't have anything to gauge that against. And it's so new and you want to love and make sure that they have what they need. And at some point that can backfire a little bit, because they are 11. It's the same with, my son who it's like, and then he's got 3 older sisters who are like, he should be doing that,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a struggle to figure that out. But so as the youngest, maybe you're not getting a sandwich if you don't make it.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just
going on.
Oh yeah, I remember. I mean, I think he was like 2 or 3 and I was upstairs doing laundry and he was like, can you make me a sandwich? And I was like, yes, I will be right there and I will do it. And I came downstairs and he had already gotten out the bread, the peanut butter and the knife and he was just doing it himself. And I was like, well, okay. He's just much more of a go-getter. I'm not waiting for you. I'm going to do it. And like last night they had a get together, a fall fest at his school. And he was running around, he's in 1st grade now, running around the school with all of his friends, like he wasn't waiting for us. And that was definitely not our experience with Cam and not even necessarily with Beckett. I mean, Beckett is definitely much more social now, although it took him a while because like with COVID hitting, when like kindergarten and 1st grade was really hard for him socially, he was much more shy and he would not talk he wouldn't talk in class. And if he did talk, he would make his friend, our neighbor, talk for him. Now, apparently, he's very social and like that's not a problem anymore. But like Grayson is just like running around the school all over. And he's like, can I have this friend over? Can I have that friend over? Can I have this friend over?
Even with the moms and anybody at the games. Just like
well, one night at baseball, he couldn't find him for a few minutes. And he was like, oh, I went into the woods with a guy. And I was like, what? And then
We need more details.
yeah, like what was that? And then we found out it wasn't really a guy, and I think he went into the woods with Bailey.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I was like, geez, I gotta keep a better watch on my 5-year-old.
And Grayson, we need like the full story out of the
Yes,
shoot.
the full story,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't be going into the woods with
What are you
older
doing?
kids.
Like, yeah.
But like he's so used to, following around the older siblings of all the baseball kids,
Yeah.
and Bailey was then told us the whole story. But it was like, geez.
Yeah.
So
It's gotta
Yeah.
watch that one.
yeah, so he's the
so
one we
good.
gotta watch. But
So as a mom of 3 boys who are so different, I mean, how do you do that? Because there have to be days when you can't. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you're trying to engage with all 3. They're all very different. You want to equally, sort of interact with them. You're maybe tired. You're working. I mean, you have a full-time job, and you're married, and you have a house. And so how do you organize that? How do you do that?
I don't know.
I was going to say, do you ever think about that?
I think about it all the time, and I'm still trying to figure it out, honestly. I mean, even Tanner and I were actually just even talking about that the other day, because we feel like Cam gets a lot of attention with his baseball. And, like summers are always baseball.
Right.
And so then, like I feel bad for Beckett, because I think that Beckett can sometimes fall through the cracks, and how do we make sure that Beckett gets the attention that he needs? And because Cam has always been so focused on baseball, and he knows what he wants, but then there's Beckett, and it's like, he's not sure yet what he wants,
Right.
like, or how that translates, like, Beckett starts basketball, or he started, and he likes it, but he's like, it's harder now. And so
Right,
he's
as he
like,
gets older.
yeah, so now he's like, do I really like it anymore?
Right.
But I kind of think he sometimes feels like he has to like sports, or he has to
Right.
like basketball, because it's different from baseball, and he wants to be his own person, and he wants that attention that like Cam gets from baseball.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's his thing, and I think he's starting to realize that it might not be his thing, but then he struggles with, so then what is my thing that I can get attention with, like Cam gets attention.
Yeah.
So Tanner and I were just talking about, like, what do we do, and how do we make sure that he feels special in his thing, so then Tanner's like, well, he really liked the chess tournament,
Yeah.
that, so like, can we sign him up for more chess tournaments? I'm like, well, there's another one coming up, so it's like, how do you, I'm still struggling with that, like, how do we make him feel special enough? And, are there, because we know he loves art, and his imagination is crazy. Like, is there writing things that he can do? And, like, the Sun Prairie Parks and Rec thing just came out.
Oh, right.
So I was just scouring through that, like, what can I do for Beckett that will,
What are the
activities that will draw him in? So yeah, I feel like I don't even have the answer yet, because, I think it changes a lot. And especially with Beckett, Cam was easy, because it was like, since he could walk, he wanted to play baseball.
That's so helpful. As
It
a
is.
parent.
But for Beckett, I don't know, like I kind of know, because, but his interests are so varied, but he's also like this great dancer. Like, he can dance like a boy band. Like, he is an awesome dancer, but he doesn't want to get up in front of people and do it.
Right.
So like, I did sign him up for hip hop class, but he was like, I don't want to do that, like.
He doesn't want an audience.
No,
maybe.
he doesn't want an audience. So we're struggling to like find something for him that he wants to do. And then he actually came and said, well, maybe I want to do a play. You do, that's great. But he doesn't want to be in the play. He kind of wants to do the behind the scenes of the play. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, some of these things I think might work themselves out as he gets older, and the choices are more varied for him.
And the other thing is, maybe there isn't something that exists as an activity that really encompasses who he is, because his imagination is so great, and he does a lot of things, and maybe he can just do those things without it being formalized.
Right.
But I think as parents, it's like, okay, well, we do all this for our oldest, and the youngest gets attention because he comes to all these things and people pay attention to him anyway, so we don't have to worry about attention for him. But, sometimes in the middle, it's like, well, we want to equalize this for you as
Right.
your parents, because we don't want you to feel like we love somebody else more, or but yeah, that's interesting, because I think we try to formalize that to show the
Yes.
kids, look, we're investing in you the same we invested in somebody else, and we either want to play basketball, you know?
Right.
And so some of that is for us, you know, helps us feel better.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
it is
trying
a
to
struggle.
remember too, you know, I've seen it before, and I see it through work a lot too. Equality doesn't necessarily mean equity and equality.
Right.
Equity doesn't always look the same for everyone. You know, the box,
Yes,
the
I've seen
thing
that.
with the boxes.
Yeah.
I can't just. So what looks like for Cam doesn't necessarily always equate to what it might look like for Beckett.
Right.
So I'm trying to remember that for myself too. Like, we can do this for Cam, it might look different for Beckett, and it's probably going to look different for Grayson.
Right.
Because like Grayson is only 6, so it's like he doesn't even know what he wants, because like he's like, I like soccer, I want to play soccer again. Great, I signed him up for soccer. He goes, you did what?
Yeah.
I don't like soccer.
They don't know. It's
So, you know, it's like
Yeah.
he's all over the map. So, and it doesn't even have to be sports. You know, he's kind of a little bit of Cam and he's a little bit of Beckett when it comes to sports. He's lazy, but he kind of likes sports. So it's like, who knows what he'll do, and that's fine. You know, so I think it'll look different because they're all different. It'll look, I'm trying to remember that it might look different for all of them. And that's hard as a parent, because you want it to just not be easy, but be like uniform, so that you can
Well, it helps
see
you organize
It helps
better
me
as a-
organize,
yeah.
but it also, so I can make sure it's even
Yeah.
or equal. But
you really can't.
you really can't, because they're all so different. And I'm trying to remember that so that I feel better as a parent. But it's also, it's not about, I'm trying to remember it's not about me either.
But as parents, we do project how we feel onto the kids,
Yes.
thinking they feel what we feel. They're having their own experience. So
I know.
some of that we can interpret, but a lot of that is what we're carrying around. You
Yeah,
know?
I think so. And I think part of it, I should probably just have a conversation with Beckett, but I also don't want to like bring up something and, you know what, it's like there's a lot of
Yeah.
that internal guilt.
Yes.
It's like they were born and I was just born with like all this guilt just happened. And,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, the other thing is, you know, Cam had different parents than Beckett has, because Beckett has parents who already had a kid.
Yes.
And then Grayson has parents who already had 2 kids.
Yes.
And you're a different person. You
Yes.
can't help it. You
No,
grow
yes,
and learn all
yes.
these things. Like, you know, you didn't bring Grayson home and be like, there's no manual. Like, you kind of had a manual.
Yeah,
you
it
know,
was like,
so it's
well, whatever.
different.
Yeah, well, we put all these pillows around the fireplace when Cam was born, and by the time Grayson was born, they were all gone. So
It's like, you're probably going to be fine.
yeah,
Like,
you'll be
brothers are
fine. The other
And
2 survived.
As you have more kids too, it's like, you can't do that yet. You
Right.
know? It's like, but your first child, you're like, no, I don't want you to be around that. You know,
Yes.
it's like, so yeah, they're all dealing with different parents.
Yeah.
You know, than the other one too. And I think having grace for ourselves and
Yes.
your kids, you know, they're loved. They know that they're
Yeah.
provided for, you know, and they speak up. That's the other thing. Your kids don't not tell you things
Oh, no.
or let you know that the
yeah.
peanut butter sandwich needs to be done now, or they don't
Yes.
want to play soccer. And so that communication can help so much too. Even if you don't know what they want,
Yeah.
you know, hopefully fostering that lets them feel comfortable enough to tell you at some point.
Oh, they usually do. We're working on that
Yeah.
too. It's like
Also, don't tell me too much. It's
yes,
like,
yes,
make your own sandwich.
yes.
So with all of this going on and all of the things that you've talked about being involved in, and we talk about resilience and, you know, mental strength, you're kind of in the years where it's like you're dealing with things as they come up. You know, it's kind of hard to organize. You know, as your kids get older and they're more self-sufficient, you can share schedules and have conversations with them about what they're doing. But right now, you know, when your kids are young, it's like putting out fires sometimes, or just like what's for dinner in an hour, you know, or whatever.
Quick trip.
Yeah, always. So when you're feeling, you know, maybe like you don't have something, is there a place you go or something you think about, or, you know, how do you dig deep to keep going? Because there are a lot of people who have children who just sometimes feel like they just can't do it. You know, they don't have it in them. It's just too much today, or it's too hard to get up tomorrow, or, you know, how do you get through that?
I go for a walk, honestly. I mean, part of my therapy probably is going for a walk. We have a dog, and so I had a dog before I met Tanner, and then he was about 11 and he died. And Grayson was about 6 months old. And then when you're in the middle of, like, you know, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old, I was like, we are not getting another dog.
No, it's
I'm
a
like,
lot.
it's a lot. It's too much. We need some time with no dog. But then I didn't have an excuse to go for a walk. You know, I was like, not that I wouldn't go for a walk, but it was like when we had a dog, I had to go for a walk. Like,
this is important. Yes.
The dog needed a walk, and like there was no excuse, even in the winter, you know, like the dog needed a walk and I needed to take the dog for a walk.
Right.
So it lasted about 5-6 months and we had another dog. I was like, what am I doing? But like, I needed that, you know, like I realized that, I mean, I missed a dog because you know, the dog is just part of the family.
Right.
You know, we were all devastated when he died, but then I was like, I needed that too. That was part of my mental health.
You needed the dog.
I needed the dog.
As much as you didn't need the dog.
As much as, as much work as it is, it was like, I needed that dog, you know, like, cause I can go for a walk by myself. And I do, you know, and I did, and I can get on my treadmill and I can go to the pack or whatever. But it was like, if I didn't have that, like, okay, I got to take the dog for a walk and get out of this crazy house. I mean, like, I needed that. So that's really a lot of my, even when sometimes, like, I feel like the house is burning down. I was like, well, I got to go take the dog for a walk. I'll be back.
The dog and I are going to be fine.
I'll be back in 30 minutes. And even sometimes when Tanner's like, well, you know, I can take the dog for a walk. It's like, nope, I got it.
Not for you.
It's good. I mean, I'll let him sometimes, but sometimes it's just like, I need that. That's kind of my decompression. And sometimes my decompression too is just, you know, like the drive to and from work and turning up the music really, really loud. And I'm that person you'll see next to you in the car who's, you know.
Are you singing?
I am singing. I'm singing the lyrics. I am singing out loud and stuff. And
we talked about this on the last show too. Music was the big thing for Rebecca, who I interviewed. And we were talking about how just like, it's kind of scream singing is like so therapeutic.
Oh yeah, I love music. Music has always been, my mom said too, but like walking, books, and music, like those are my 3 biggest things. I'll read a book. It's harder now to read a book
for sure
than it was before, but reading books is definitely, but yeah, music is always like, you know, I played an instrument throughout, you know, middle school and high school. But I just love I love going to concerts. I love music in general. The boys, I think, have picked up my love of music too. So, but yeah, I'm always have music. I have music on at work just because like the silence, I can't stand it.
Right.
But yeah, I'm always have music on in the car, and I always turn it up, and I'm singing. I'm definitely singing. So if you look over and like I'm singing, and sometimes people look at me and I'm like, sorry. Yeah. But not
well,
sorry, really.
If they're moms or parents, they're probably like, no. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, for a while, I kind of felt guilty because a lot of my, you know, songs have swear words in it, and the boys were in the car. But then I was like, they're going to learn it eventually. So
they hear that so much regularly
I know.
Now. It's not,
but
it's
you
just
know,
different
it's just
world.
a song. So
yeah. Well, and you know, if it comes up, then having a conversation about it is good. You know. Yeah. So the thing about the dog, I think, is kind of telling in parenthood too, because, and I talk about motherhood because I'm a mother, you know, I can talk about fathers too, but I don't know firsthand. But that whole like justifying some time where you're not responsible or engaged or firsthand taking care of what's happening in the house. And even if you have to cause yourself chaos to get out of the chaos. So it's, you know, just like you said, like you didn't have the dog. I'm getting the dog, even though you know that's going to add more work for you. Yep. The reward of being able to use that as not even use that, but we do that to ourselves. Make that excuse that the dog needs a walk. The dog's probably like, I mean, I could go without today, you know, or right now, but you're like, no, you need that because I need that. And finding a way to sort of justify having that 30 minutes to ourselves just to regroup. And that's so refreshing and important. And And if you're not doing that as a parent, sometimes it's just you're home by yourself if you're a stay-at-home mom, and the kids, it's like relentless when they're little, and maybe you have to put them in their crib, and maybe they don't love that, but if their basic needs are met and they're just mad, maybe it's okay if they're just mad for a little while, because you need to regroup, because a better you is better for them. And
I did that when they were, when COVID hit, I was a little more lax, but for a long time, I would like finding time for exercise too. I would get up, like even when they were infants, I would get up at like 4, 4:45 in the morning, try to do it before they were, awake. Even when I was nursing, I would okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to run or walk on the treadmill, and then the monitor would go off and they'd cry and I'd be like, oh my God. And I'm 5 minutes in.
Of course,
of course. And I'd bring the monitor, I'd try to let it go as long as I could, but now they're screaming, okay, I got to go get them. I'd bring them downstairs to the basement. I'd put them in some exercise or something, set them by the treadmill and get in another 5 minutes. And then, they'd scream again, put them in something else and get in another 5 minutes, but I don't know, I felt like it was important, because it was number one, I needed it for me, but number two, I was you need to figure out how to occupy yourself.
Right there.
Too.
Yes.
And then as they got bigger, I started I don't know, roping on, or you had those I didn't have a playpen necessarily.
Right. It's kind of like gates.
Those gates. I'd put the gates up, or I'd put, bins up around the TV area, and I'd put a bunch of toys in there, and I'm I need this 30 minutes on the treadmill and you need to play here.
Yeah.
And then they learned I would totally gate off something, and I'd shove pillows where all the little tiny
holes,
things, the holes were. Then they'd figure out how to get through it, when they were 1 and 2, and I'd just be ah.
They're on the treadmill behind you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I had a bike down there too, and then they'd get into the bike, and I just, oh my God, it was this whole thing that
it's chaos to get out of chaos.
Yes. But it was
so strange.
And it would take me an hour to get 30 minutes in, but I was bound, and I'd haul them right back in there, and I'd put them down, and then they'd figure out how to get through. Oh gosh, I did that for years and years and years. Just they'd figure out how to get through, and then I'd put them back in, and I'd shove the hole again, and then they'd climb over the thing, and then I put them back in and give them a different toy.
What you really were doing were just they were learning too. You know what I mean? At your expense.
Yeah.
Course,
Totally.
Yeah, just how to climb and maneuver things.
Yeah,
and so that actually was good for them.
Some days I was kind of what am I doing? But then the other days I was just
crazy.
I have to do this, and I have to, and also they need to, I don't know, I'm very much I want to play with my kids, but I'm also they need to play with themselves. They also need to play with their brothers, and they also need to, there are certain times where I'm I need to take this time for myself, because if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be as good of a mother for you.
Right. This is not going to work out for you.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's important for them to learn that, because that's a life skill.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Some days I feel guilty about it. Other days I it's got to happen.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times you feel guilty about things they're just moving past.
Yeah, I feel guilty about most things, but they don't seem to care as much.
They move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even, you have this sort of tough interaction with them, and you're feeling terrible a half hour later. They must feel terrible, Actually, they don't.
Yes.
They moved on.
Yes.
Already, and you've been carrying that guilt around now for a half hour, not just for you, but for them, and they've moved on. And
yeah, there was, I don't even remember what exactly, there was something, and I think it was Cam or something, and he was oh, I don't even remember that. And I was that's good, because now I can let it go.
And then that's a lesson for us too. I remember learning that, through a few kind of specific instances, dropping kids off at daycare or something, and just feeling they're crying, but you have to go, and it's the worst for half the day, it's just this loop in your head about how bad. And the minute they were you were out of sight, that was
they were
constant.
Yes, that was a constant with Cam, because he had a couple different daycares, and it was like, I remember him screaming and running after me, and I had to leave, and it was like, oh my God.
It's such a production, I know.
And then you get to work and I get a text, oh, he's fine now, he's just playing. It's like, oh, thank God. And you knew this was going to happen, but it was also like,
And your actions too, I learned over the years, you know, if you're behaving like that's scary for them. So it's scary for them, they don't want you to go. And then you're sort of enabling that a little bit by, okay, I'll hang around, or I'll be here for the next 5 minutes or something. That communicates to them that, you know what, maybe this isn't really safe for the next 5 minutes. I'll stay here and make sure. Instead of you are confident it's a place that you would take your kids, you're confident in them, you feel that way. This is what we do. This is hard for you. This is also hard for me. I'll be back at the end of the day. You know, and just learning that over the years, it's always like, feels like you learn it the hard way. And
I've kind of been, or tried to be more of a, it'll be fine, let's keep going, let's move on, and not been too much of a hoverer.
Yeah.
It's been hard, but, and then I also feel like sometimes I get some of those looks like, oh, what are you doing? Your kid is crying. Why aren't you, you know, but it's like, this is better for them in the long run, but I'm just going to walk away. But yeah, that's, you know, it's kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah. It's a tough call.
Yeah.
And it's so temporary.
Yeah.
We forget that too.
Yeah.
Like when we're in the throes of something, it's like, it feels like it's going to go on forever. This tantrum will never end. I'm never going to sleep again. Like it feels like it will go on forever, and it doesn't.
No.
It's temporary.
Yeah.
And they grow and they have skills and
yeah.
So, okay. So anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to bring up, or anything, you know, like I said in the beginning, the aim is to really, through stories and experiences, you know, provide just support or ideas, strategies. Anything that we didn't talk about that you maybe wanted to offer? To new moms, or moms, people who aspire to be moms, moms who are struggling, or even moms who are having a great time being moms.
I think, like you said, a lot of it is temporary, you know, like, I mean, I remember so much that just seemed so hard, and but it was, you know, like, I know it, I've heard it so many times, the days are long, but the years are short. I mean, I cannot believe that Cam is already in middle school. Like, it happened so fast. But those days are hard, you know, they really are.
Right.
But it is temporary. But I also think that a lot of people go through the same things that you or we are going through.
Right.
And to really talk about it, I don't know, like, I kind of feel like people have an idea of what they think motherhood or marriage or whatever should be like, but it's not really like what you think it's going to be like.
Right.
You know, like, my friend, lots of friends, you know, say like, oh, have kids, it'll be fun, they say, you know, but it's hard, you know, like, it's really hard. You probably would be, people might, if they haven't talked about it, might be surprised at what other people are, like you said, going through, you know, and that a lot of people might be going through the very similar or even the same things that you are going through. So I would say, like, if people are struggling, talk about it. I don't think that people talk about their struggles enough, like with Facebook and Instagram, you know, like, all of those things are really a snapshot, and people put the best things up on there, and myself included.
For sure.
And to be fair, like, I feel like sometimes I do that because I like the memories that come up with it, you know, like, for me to remember a happy time that happened. But that's not really my real life. You know, my real life is much more messy. It's much more of a struggle. It's much more of, like, just getting through the day. And I feel like that's probably true for most people. And I think that for me, I use Facebook more for, like, memories and not so much for, like, this is my real life. And I don't think people necessarily, some people, I should say, don't necessarily see it that way.
Right.
They think that people's lives are just happy all the time, or, like, maybe they believe that, maybe they don't, I don't know.
Right.
I think that's been a harder realization for me, or that was a struggle at first.
Right.
So I feel like if people don't talk about that, like, what is real about motherhood, the real struggles of motherhood, the real struggles of marriage, then how do you know that what you're going through is normal?
And it probably is.
And it probably is, you know, like, so like that I feel like is important for mothers to like help each other and lift each other up and be like, this is normal. This is what my experience was. Because maybe you can, you know, that will help you get through it or give you ideas on how to help you get through it, you know, that kind of thing. Because it is hard.
It is hard.
It is hard. It's much harder. There are days where it's absolutely wonderful, and you know, like some of the things that my kids do just delight me, and it's like, you are a cool kid, and you like the things, you know, that happen were super fun. But then there are days where it's like, oh my God, like how did I get through this day, and what am I going to do? Or you're just worried, you know, like my son went through a period where I was very, very worried about him, you know, and all of his anxieties and all of this stuff. And like, how do we get through this? And what do we do to help him? And all of that kind of stuff. So it's like, if you don't talk about that with other people you trust, you know, how do you get through that and not be so bogged down yourself, you know, that kind of thing, I guess.
I think that's great. And I think sometimes just saying the first thing, we're in groups of moms a lot if you're a mom, because your kids are doing common things, or you're at the ball diamond or at the play or whatever it is. And I think being brave enough to say the first thing, because I think most moms feel this so much, and nobody wants to say the first thing, but if you say it, somebody is going to say, oh my gosh, I know. And that starts the dialogue, and then you're on level playing ground, and then everybody can be a resource for everybody else, and you can feel like you're not alone. And maybe somebody has gone through this last year and they have a strategy that can help, or just an idea, or just some comfort to say like, look, this is hard. I don't think
I've ever found someone who has not been through something that I have been through.
Or said something to a mom or a group of moms where somebody wasn't like, for sure, this is.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we're all just doing this dance where we want to be doing the right thing.
Right.
We want our kids to reflect that we're doing the right thing. We want to seem like we've got it together.
Right.
You know, for ourselves as much as, you know, the public. And if we're all doing that, then we have that in common, and that's a place to start talking. So I think that's valuable to say that. Yeah,
I think that too often we get some outside messages that we have to be perfect, and we tear each other down. But I think ultimately we don't want to do that. I think those are more outside messages, because once you like really get into the mom groups that you know and you know that you trust and you can relate to, the people, you're not going to get that. No. I really don't think that, because
I agree.
And I don't think you're going to get judgment either. Like when you're real with people, like, you know, I haven't experienced that with the people that I trust. Like I've had great conversations with so many people, and it's like, I'm a very sarcastic person. So, you know, I make a lot of jokes, you know, like, hey, this happened, my husband did this, you know, and I tell my husband that too, you know, like, well, I told my friends you did that. And he's like, well, I told my friends you did this, you know, so like, I'm a very, you know, like that's how I deal with things too, through sarcasm and stuff like that. But, you know, like if you can't be real, then, I mean, I don't know, I guess that's how I deal with things. And I think that I've found a lot of people who have helped me deal with things and given me different perspectives. And I think it's helped me get through a lot of things. Like, hey, this is normal. It's hard, but it's normal because so many other people are going through the same thing. And that makes it so much easier. Because when you think you're alone, then you're like, why is everyone else not going through this? But you're not alone.
No, you're not alone.
You're not alone at all.
That's a very good place to maybe wrap up today. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was fun. And the sarcasm thing, I mean, that's something right away when I met you, I was like, oh, I love that she's so real about how things are going. So I appreciate that about you. So all done for today. Just remember to keep your own perspective, but always try to step into somebody else's to better understand things. Be resilient and continue to show up. Always pursue. And if you do feel alone, remember you're in a group of 2 billion people and you're really not. and we are here for you. Thank you.